fell on a day that Elisha passed to Shunem, where was a great woman. She constrained him to eat bread. And so it was that as oft as he passed by, he turned in thither to eat bread. And she said unto her husband, Behold, now I perceive that this is a holy man of God, which passeth by us continually. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, on the wall, and let us set for him there a bed and a table and a stool and a candlestick, and it shall be when he cometh to us that he shall turn in thither. And it fell on a day that he came thither, and he turned into the chamber, and he lay there. And he said to Gehazi, his servant, Call this Shunammite. And when he had called her, she stood before him. And he said unto her, Say now, and he said unto him, Elisha said unto Gehazi, Say now unto her, Behold, thou hast been careful for us with all this care. What is to be done for thee? Wouldest thou be spoken for to the king or to the captain of the host? And she answered, I dwell among mine own people. And he said to her, What then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, Verily she hath no child, and her husband is old. And he said, Call her. And when he had called her, she stood in the door. And he said, About this season, according to the time of life, thou shalt embrace a son. And she said, Nay, my lord, thou man of God, do not lie unto thy handmaid. And the woman conceived and bare a son at that season that Elisha had said unto her, according to the time of life. And when the child was grown, it fell on a day that he went out to his father to the reapers. And he said unto his father, My head, my head. And he said to the lad, Carry him to his mother. And when he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon, and then died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, and shut the door upon him, and went out. And she called unto her husband, and said, Send me, I pray thee, one of the young men, and one of the asses, that I may run to the man of God, and come again. And he said, Wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath. And she said, It shall be well. Then she saddled an ass and said to her servant, Drive and go forward. Slack not thy riding for me, except I bid thee. So she went and came unto the man of God to Mount Carmel. And it came to pass, when the man of God saw her afar off, that he said to Gehazi his servant, Behold, yonder is that Shunammite. Run now, I pray thee, to meet her, and say unto her, Is it well with thee? Is it well with thy husband? Is it well with thy child? And she answered, It is well. And when she came to the man of God to the hill, she caught him by the feet, but Gehazi came near to thrust her away. And the man of God said, Let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her, and the Lord hath hid it from me, and hath not told me. Then she said, Did I desire a son of my Lord? Did I not say, Do not deceive me? Then he said to Gehazi, Gird up thy loins, and take my staff in thine hand, and go thy way. If thou meet any man, salute him not. And if any salute thee, answer him not again. And lay my staff upon the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, As the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. Isn't that interesting? She said the exact same thing to Elisha that Elisha had said to Elijah. And he arose and followed her. And Gehazi passed on before them, and laid the staff upon the face of the child. But there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him, and he told him, saying, The child is not awakened. In the world of advertising, there is a popular slogan that has been used so many times, in so many ways, in so many ad campaigns, that nobody really seems to know where it came from to begin with. I was trying to do a little bit of research on it this week, and the best guess anybody can come up with, although they're not entirely sure, is that it originated in the 1880s with a French chocolate company. But in the years since, it's been used by everybody from Coca-Cola to Porsche to Mercedes-Benz to Bridgestone tires to Nerf guns. You'll see it everywhere. Now that I pointed out to you, it's simple, but it says so much. That slogan is, accept no substitute. Is Pepsi okay? Coca-Cola wants you to say no. Accept no substitutes. Are Kelly tires okay? Bridgestone wants you to say no. Accept no substitutes. Is a Walmart branded gun that shoots suction cup foam darts fun to play with? Absolutely it is. But Nerf guns want you to say, if it ain't, what was their slogan? It's Nerf or nothing. Accept no substitutes. It's manipulation by people who want to sell you something that is usually more expensive than the alternative. But sometimes it's true. Sometimes you cannot accept a substitute. Elisha was a man like me and like you. James said Elijah was a man of like passion such as we are. Elisha fit the same bill. He certainly had great faith. We have established that by this point in our study of the book of 1 Kings and 2 Kings. God has at this point done wondrous works by the hands of Elisha. He saw his mentor Elijah taken into heaven, as we taught last time, in a chariot of fire, and he drops the mantle. Elisha had requested that double portion from Elijah, and he picks up that mantle, wraps it around his hand, and says, "Where is the Lord God of Elijah?" Smacks the Jordan River, and it parts in twain, and he passes on dry ground. God's Spirit is upon Elisha. But just because he had great faith and just because the Spirit rested upon Elisha did not mean that Elisha himself was infallible. He served an infallible God, but he was a man just like we were. He's met by this Shunammite woman. And God, for whatever reason, has not revealed what's going on to Elisha. It seems that Elisha is surprised by this. No doubt in his walk with God, he's usually has a pretty good read on the situations as God reveals it to him. But here, something's being kept from him, and he doesn't understand why. And so he sends, but he finds out that there's something wrong with this boy. She doesn't tell him here that the boy had died, but he perceives that something is wrong with this miraculous child that she had been given. So he sends Gehazi with his staff, we read, to lay it upon the face of the boy. And Elisha, I get the feeling that Elisha doesn't really know what to do in this situation, so he's just trying to do something. Maybe he had heard, no doubt he had heard about all the mighty works that God had done by Moses through the rod of Aaron, and he thought if it was good enough for Moses and Aaron, it'll work for me too. No doubt he had thought about even the mantle, even the clothing that Elijah wore was powerful enough to part the Jordan River. Maybe he thought, well, surely my staff in Gehazi's hand will do enough to rectify this situation. But Gehazi goes and lays the staff on the boy. Nothing happens, and he returns to Elisha and says, the boy is not awakened. Elisha had probably expected to walk into that house and find that boy sitting in his bed eating chicken fingers, watching YouTube on his iPad. Didn't happen.
No, didn't.
Got there and he was stone dead. The thing did not work. It's kind of astonishing, to be honest, how many times, not very often, do you read in the Bible where a man of God, where a person walking in faith with God attempts a miracle and it doesn't work. But I believe God is trying to tell us something here. It seems God is trying to prove a concept to me that it took advertising executives thousands of years to catch on to. Accept no substitutes. The staff wouldn't do it. If you were going to defeat mankind's greatest predator, death, it would require something more than just a symbol. It would require something more than just a dead piece of wood. It would require something real. It would require something physical. It would require presence. And you could accept no substitute. Let's read what ends up happening here. Verse 32, when Elisha was come into the house, behold, the child was dead and laid upon his bed. He went in therefore and shut the door upon them twain and prayed unto the Lord. Elisha is no doubt flummoxed. What am I going to do? I promised this woman a son. You gave her that son. Now this son is dead. She's been a faithful help to your servant. I've been a faithful servant to you. Elisha no doubt said, what in the world are we going to do? What am I supposed to do? And I believe that still small voice that we just sang about, that still small voice that his mentor Elijah encountered on top of that mountain, spoke to Elisha now and reminded him of a story that he had no doubt heard Elijah tell him. Of that time when there was a great famine in the land and there was no food to be had, and Elijah encountered a widow woman. We talked about it not too long ago. And he told that woman that if she was going to make one more meal and die, her and her son were just going to give up and waste away to nothing because the famine was so severe. But Elijah said, if you make me a cake first, God will take care of us. And she did. She was faithful. And the meal was not used up throughout the entire time of that famine. But one day, just like happened with the Shunammite woman, that faithful widow's son up and died. She laid him in Elijah's chamber. She even said, why did you come into my house to curse me? She said, all I've ever done was what you wanted. All I've ever done was try to make your God happy. And Elijah entreats God. He goes into the chamber. He lays himself on the body of that boy, eye to eye, mouth to mouth, hand to hand, and he was brought back to life and delivered unto his mother. And I believe that still small voice said, Elisha, you got a double portion of what Elijah got. If it worked for him, it'll work for you. Accept no substitutes. And Elijah, you'll notice when he healed that widow woman's son, he didn't lay a staff on him. He didn't take that mantle and stretch it out across from him. What he had to do was get down in the dirty, in the uncleanness, in the filth of death with that boy, associate himself with that dead boy, and that is when God's presence moved. So guess what Elisha does? Verse 33. He went in therefore, shut the door upon them twain, and prayed unto the Lord. And he went up and lay upon the child, and put his mouth upon his mouth, and his eyes upon his eyes, and his hands upon his hands. And he stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child waxed warm. Then he returned and walked in the house to and fro, went up, stretched himself upon him, and the child sneezed 7 times. And the child opened his eyes, and he called Gehazi and said, call the Shunammite. So he called her, and when she was come in unto him, he said, take up thy son. And then she went in and fell at his feet and bowed herself to the ground and took up her son and went out. Accept no substitute. The staff wouldn't do it. Needed the presence of the prophet to make a difference. This is only the second time, as we talked in our Easter lesson, this is only the second time in the Bible up to this point where death has been reversed. But it's not reversed by a token. It's not reversed by a symbol. It is reversed by Elisha's association with that dead boy in his affliction. In that moment, he associated himself. It said eye to eye, mouth to mouth, hand to hand. He took on the position of that dead boy, taking on the ritual uncleanness of touching a dead person, and that's when God was able to move. Not a sign or a symbol, but a real physical presence. Accept no substitute. I fear that my Sunday school lessons have something in common with old episodes of Scooby-Doo. If you've watched enough Scooby-Doo, you know that they all follow the same pattern. The gang shows up in the mystery machine and then encounters some kind of ghost or goblin, and then they chase each other around for about 10 minutes. And then inevitably, one of them captures the thing, and then they pull the head off, and it's the cranky farmer from earlier in the episode. If you've seen one episode of Scooby-Doo, you've seen absolutely every episode of Scooby-Doo. It happens exactly the same way. I worry that my Sunday school lessons are like that in a way, because you know I'm going to start off somewhere, and I'm going to end up going, and that's just like Jesus. But you'll have to forgive me because I still haven't gotten over this. I've been teaching for over 15 years at this point. I know that because I got a Facebook memory this week telling me that apparently I taught my first lesson as a Sunday school teacher And I'm still, as many lessons, dozens and dozens of lessons I've taught, I'm still not over how the God of the universe allowed himself to take on my nature, to become associated with me in my death and my filth, that he would come and throw himself upon the gears of this world system just to save somebody like me. I thought about how Elisha had to be physically present to defeat death in that Shunammite woman's house. He had to become associated with that boy to the point where he laid himself in the exact position that boy was in and became ritualistically unclean. And it was only at that point when life re-entered that boy. And my mind went, of course, to Isaiah chapter 53. We read about it so often in the Easter season, but it's good all year round. The prophet told us that Jesus was despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows, listen to this, acquainted with grief. Acquainted is the word that they used in 1611 when they translated the King James Version. A more modern usage, English has changed a lot in the last 400 years. A more modern translation of that, we don't use the word acquainted like that so much anymore. A more modern translation would be familiar. He was familiar with grief. He understood grief. Why? Because that was his nature? No, that's the nature of man, to be acquainted with grief. To understand grief is part of human nature, but Jesus existed before time in perpetual bliss, in an environment where all he heard from the beginning of time was praise to his name. Grief was not his nature. Why was he acquainted with grief? It's because he acquainted himself with us. Isaiah goes on to say, surely he hath borne our griefs, carried our sorrows, yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him. And with his stripes we are healed. Why? Because that was his nature? No. Jesus existed in an environment where there was no pain, where there was no sin, where there were no stripes, there were no sorrows, where he never would have been wounded. Why was he wounded? Because he associated himself with us. All we like sheep have gone astray. We've turned everyone to his own way. The Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. Even though he existed on a plane where there is no sin and there is no iniquity. He was oppressed, he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He's brought forth as a lamb to the slaughter, as a sheep before his shears is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. He was taken from prison and from judgment, though he existed in perfect freedom from the beginning of time. Who shall declare his generation? For he's cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people was he stricken. He hath made his grave with the wicked. He who is immortal, who said I was alive and dead, but behold, I'm evermore. He made his grave with the wicked. Why? Because it was his nature to die? Hardly. He's immortal. He died because he associated himself with us. And with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed, he shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. He shall see the travail of his soul, he shall be satisfied, and by his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death. And he was numbered with the transgressors, associated with them, and bare the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at? Elijah's rod wouldn't do the job, because it was just a symbol of the prophet. It was just a token of his existence. That's Elisha's rod, no doubt about it. It was a cane. It was something he used as he walked to and fro. Anybody that had seen Elisha would probably recognize that as Elisha's rod. but a token wouldn't do it. It required Elisha's physical presence. He had to be physically present in that situation. He had to associate himself with that boy in his condition before death could be reversed. In the same way, God's salvation would not have worked if all He had done was sent us some kind of nice symbol. All He would have done is sent us some kind of nice token, provided us some kind of wooden or golden God for us to worship in His stead. The only way salvation came, the only way we have hope of resurrection is that God Himself stepped into our situation and became associated with us. Eye to eye, mouth to mouth, hand to hand. Don't you find it interesting that the writer of Kings uses the language, He stretched Himself upon the boy. Jesus came, met us eye to eye, met us mouth to mouth, met us hand to hand. And it was only then that this enemy called death could be reversed, that we would gain power over this enemy called death. Our eyes had been dimmed as that little boy's had when he was laying on that deathbed to God's righteousness. Our mouth had become dumb to the words of God. Our hands wrought only unrighteousness. But by becoming associated with our condition, we can now see through His eyes. We can now speak with His tongue. And our hands become His hands, repairing this broken world through His power, not a sign or a symbol. You understand that even the cross that we hold so dear, the old rugged cross, it's just a symbol unless we know the one that was crucified upon it. Thousands of people throughout human history have died upon a cross, but only one made the difference for me and you. Not because it's a sign or a symbol, but because it represents the real living presence of a God who associated Himself with our condition. It's the only way it would have worked, so accept no substitute. There are plenty of even Christian preachers who will tell you that you can be resurrected and renewed by your works, but accept no substitute. There is no amount of good living that we could do that would ever. That boy lay dead on his bed that morning. There was nothing he could do. He required somebody else to come and change his situation. There is no amount of good work you can do in your sinful, dead situation that will resurrect you. There are no signs and symbols. There's no necklaces you can wear. There's no t-shirts you can buy that will make up for what it really takes, which is a relationship with a real God and His real presence in your life. Accept no substitute. The only way we will ever be renewed, the only way we will ever be delivered is to have the person of Christ upon us. Amen. Picture that image of Elisha in that boy's chamber. He's laying dead on the bed, and Elisha, it worked for Elijah, Lord, I guess I'll try it too, stretches himself. The only way it worked was for Elisha to literally be upon that boy. The only way we'll ever be renewed is to have the person of Jesus upon us. Eye to eye, mouth to mouth, hand to hand. For Him to be acquainted with us in our hopeless situation. And for us to be acquainted with Him. That is the moment when life returns. That is the moment when death flees. Accept no substitute. Thank you for your attention.